State your name for the record.
Thank you. I'm Bill Bass. May it please the commission, the first thing I want to say is how impressed and grateful I am for those of you who have shown us consideration. I understand that there are those who think that this unit was built with certain understandings that Ms. Sanders could speak to this. She's the only one that was here at the time other than Mr. Schuler. But that we assumed some things that would be clear to an average buyer, and that's just not true. I can tell you this, as a lawyer and a judge, I did everything I could to check this title. Zoning issues are excluded in titles in Florida. Tallahassee Title Company stood down there and said, this is a C2 zoning. I said, not unusual for a condominium to be in a C2 zoning in Florida. What's that mean to me? It means you can't claim homestead exemption. That's fine, I don't live here. I don't want to do that. Now, with respect to what the bylaws say and so forth, I can only say that I have a problem with Tallahassee Title about that. I do want the commission to understand that when this unit was done, it was the first condo-tel that was proposed. It came in before 2007. There's a reason that these people asked to be excluded from the 2007 ordinance, which was restrictive. I don't know what their reasons were because I don't talk to them. And again, I'd rely on those who were here at the time. Let me simply say this. We ask y'all to let us use our units on a transient basis. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say there aren't people that wouldn't like to stay there all year long. I will tell you that the people that I know out there stay there infrequently and their units remain empty. I know of one person got $14,000 worth of rentals last year, all reported through the state, and the TDA received, or the county received their portion of the tourism tax from the state in that particular situation. Without clouding the issue, I want to go back to something that the chairman said that's exactly right. What you're doing will make these units go up in value. What you're doing will make our use of the units easier. What you're doing will make our ability to sell those units easier. Now, what does that mean? I paid $190,000 for my unit because it was a good deal. When that unit goes to $400,000, the amount of ad valorem tax that you will collect, because we cannot and don't desire to claim homestead exemption, will double. And the amount of that ad valorem tax will make pale the amount of any tourism tax, the 1% tax, that gets charged on any unit out there. It's in the county's interest monetarily for our units to go up as high as possible and for us to pay as much tax as possible. I would be willing to say that there's not another hotel, there's not another condo-tel, not another hotel in the county that's required to report to P&Z how many days they rent. I'll bet there's not one that if the owner lives there, there's any restrictions on him living there. All we want to do is to be able to use those units like you would normally use them. And that's, you know, somebody may want to try to stay out there the whole time. That's why we took down the mailboxes, to try to discourage that. That may happen. But all we want to do is to be able to use these units and have them accrue value, grow in value, just like anybody else does that buys a piece of property. That's all. Now, if y'all adopt this proposed ordinance verbatim as it is, we're going to be grateful for you giving us this much relief. There's not any question about that. We don't in any way come demanding. We told you when we came in the first place that we were on our hands and knees begging for relief, and y'all were kind to us, and you promised us relief, and that's what you're giving us. The things that we're looking at that we mentioned, item 4, required by state law. The reporting requirements, the licensing, all required by state law. We're not trying to take anything away from the county. We're trying to bring to the county, and we'll continue to do that. And there's no way that I can express to you how much we appreciate what's been done. Mr. Schuler's job is to protect the county. As a fellow lawyer, I understand that. As a person who bought something and didn't get what I thought I was buying and what was represented to me that I was buying, I do humbly ask for you to give us a relief. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joni Chase. I'm one of the owners at the Bungalows, and I too thank you for all the opportunity you've given us to work through this issue with all of you. One of the issues that was talked about is that if we do move forward with the language as presented to you, that we would, those who fell out of compliance would fall back to ordinance 07-27. And I wanted to share with you, I'm a retired law enforcement officer of 32 years, so looking into things and reading things and trying to figure them out is kind of something that is almost a hobby. So I looked back at anything I could find that had to do with what got us to where we are today, and I want to share that on November the 6th, 2007, the Franklin County Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution that was added to Planning and Zoning Ordinance 220.32.1. And in part, what it says, that upon consultation with and advice from both the county attorney and the county manager, the board confirms and declares that ordinance 07-27 was neither drafted nor presented with the intent to apply retroactively. This resolution clarified, ratified, and confirm the legislative intent of the Board of County Commissioners to apply Ordinance 07-27 prospectively only. It further states that Ordinance 07-27 became effective upon filing of the Office of the Secretary of State on October the 18th, 2007, and that the Sands North LLC timely commenced construction as approved by the Board of County Commissioners on August the 5th, 2005. And so, as a part of a penalty, if we're not in compliance, I just respectfully request that you adhere to what your earlier ruling was in the 07-27, and that not be held as a standard that we fall back to. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, since that issue's been addressed a couple of times, let me weigh in here. If there's a violation of the requirement to pay the tax, and there's a violation of the failure to file the report as it's been drafted, and you may yet change it, then that Section 3 penalty provision would apply. The purpose of adding in the last sentence that refers to the resort condominium units which don't satisfy all four of these criteria, that doesn't refer to, and honestly, it was never my intent to make sure that pulled you back to the 2007 ordinance. All that is intended to make clear is that unless a condominium, resort condominium unit, 37 units or less, doesn't meet all four of these qualifying criteria, and frankly, as far as I know, there's only one, which is Sands North, then everybody else falls under the umbrella of the 2007 ordinance, which is much more restrictive than what you're considering here. So to the extent that they have perhaps misinterpreted that, or I have not been as clear as I needed to be, I want to get that clarification on the record for the board and also the people who are here.
Essentially, Michael, when you're rewriting the zoning code, C2 commercial district business, the things that are included in here are not only applicable to the parcel that we're talking about, it's applicable to everything in Franklin County.
Correct.
So, you know, when we're discussing and we're having dialogue between the public and the county, I just want the public to understand that this don't just only just govern your stuff. You're talking about a law that governs everything in the county. So we have to be pretty particular as to how they're drafted, how things are written to accommodate some of the stuff that y'all are asking for. But we also have to be prudent and understand that it not only applies to your property, it applies to other properties if they fall and meet these criteria that he is speaking of. So you have to understand that we're rewriting a zoning regulation here, and it not only applies to your property. So from a county perspective, we have to look at how it applies to other pieces of property and how this C2 zoning applies across the county, not only to your particular interest that you have here today. So there's bigger and more things to be taken into consideration other than just what you're asking for. These revisions that you're asking to be rewritten is exactly what I'm talking about. Under notes, you won't propose paragraph 4 should be stricken in its entirety. Well, that don't only pertain to this, it pertains to the whole C2 zoning code of the county. And it specifically tells you in there that all motels, hotels have to submit to this tourist development tax that we collect. So if we take that completely out, then you're basically saying any motel or hotel that is in the C2 zoning no longer has to pay this tax that we're talking about. That's exactly what it says, and that's exactly what you're proposing. So I'm not misreading what's in the ordinance, and I'm not misreading what you're presenting. But you have to understand that these things you're wanting stricken and how that applies to the rest of the stuff in the county.
I understand what you're saying, I do, and I just want to point out that Section 5 and Section 3 there are specific to resort condominium unit, and that is, the definition of the resort condominium unit is our building, and it's almost impossible that anything else in your county could ever fall into that strict of a definition, because it's talking about 37 or less units. I mean, it's very, it's.
And it also
it's
says
the
it has to
intent.
be built south of Highway 98.
Correct.
I understand all that.
Right, so all of
I
those
understand
things-
You're the only one that's applicable at this time.
Correct.
That does not mean something in the future cannot be built south of Highway 98. That does not mean that something else may not come in and fit under the same criteria. You understand what I'm saying? You're talking about today. I'm talking about the zoning code that will apply for years to come.
I understand, but
And as you rewrite and as you want this stuff restricted, I'm not in favor of all that. If what the attorney is drafted is not satisfactory, and I'm only speaking for myself, not the board
Sure.
members, you just have to look, we have to look at what the implications are across this zoning code, not as it pertains to your particular situation that you're in today.
I do understand
But I
that,
want
sir.
the board to understand that too. I served on the planning and zoning board for a number of years.
I did too.
I've read the comprehensive plan of this county twice from front to back. And I ain't gonna tell you how many times I've read the land development code that works hand in hand with the comprehensive plan. It's not my first go-around here.
No, I understand that, sir. I didn't mean any disrespect by that. I just also know how restrictive the zones are.
I
and for any-
understand
for
that,
anyone
but
to fall
still,
into
as
that
the
would
gentleman
be-
spoke earlier, we're trying to give you relief, and I think we're doing that.
Yes,
But
sir.
to accommodate everything that you presented earlier is totally, take out paragraph 4, take out paragraph 5. I'm not with all that.
Okay.
Myself, I'm not speaking for the board.
I respect that. Thank
But
you.
from my understanding of being on the planning and zoning board and reading all these different codes and comprehensive plans, I understand the implications that it has for Franklin County in the future and how it could be manipulated, how it could be misconstrued. So I'm very cautious about that, and that's just me. Any more public comments? Please come forward, state your name for the record. This is a public hearing, and we're here to listen to you. Any board comment?
I've got one, Commissioner. Who's the president of the association out there? You are? I want to have her come forward. I want to ask her
Sure.
a question. You have a property manager
Yes, ma'am.
and,
Wayne.
okay, you have him or whoever? I don't know.
Wayne is-
Y'all have so many of them out there, different ones. Okay, do y'all file the timely reports with the Department of Revenue?
Yes?
Okay. How much money in the tourist tax money have y'all collected and submitted to the state of Florida?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know it?
I'm sorry.
Do you know it?
Individual licensees are responsible for those remittance reports. It is not done on behalf of the entire association.
It's done by the individual properties?
Individual unit owners.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So let me ask you another question, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask you another question. Of the properties that you manage, how much money have you submitted since the ownership of the new association has came in? How many units have you managed, and how much money have you turned into the Department of Revenue?
We manage 18 properties of various capacity along the coast, most of which are transient vacation rentals.
I'm talking about in the bungalows by the bay or Sands North. How much money have y'all paid in? I'm trying to get an idea of how much money y'all spend in there. I mean, you know, that you submit back to the state, that a certain portion of it comes to the county.
It is not significant, in my opinion. I do not know the exact
Okay.
number, but again, the individual
Okay.
remittance reports
That's
are
fine.
the responsibility of the unit owner as the holder of a Department of Revenue certificate of sales tax collections for that specific single unit.
Have you ever been late on your report to Department of Revenue?
Individuals may have been, but I am not.
He don't do
Okay.
that. He don't do
That's what
that.
I'm saying.
Every-
That's what
each
I'm saying. I'm
individual
just,
has to do
yeah.
that. He's not doing
What I'm
that.
trying to say is, by them being a resort condo unit, they're gonna go by certain state requirements. It's a given,
Yes, ma'am.
whether we have it on paper or not. It doesn't matter to me.
Yes, ma'am.
What my promise to you all were, to give you some relief. Now, I'm looking at this, and it's fine. It's fine, the way Mr. Schuler's done. But my heartburn with the whole thing was the penalty. I just, if you all do not report to the state, then the state's gonna come back on you,
Yes, ma'am.
you know. And if we need a report, it should be justified in the Department of Revenue's report. That's where I'm coming from. All this other, Ms. Janlin,
I do manage 3 properties out there for 3 property owners. They go under my dwelling license. And I do have a report that I can submit to you. I didn't bring it today because I wasn't aware that was an issue. But I can give that information to the commission.
well, I was just wanting to know about, you know, because I know that you all, there's a lot of you all that volunteer in the community. Y'all are big time in the community here, and I know that. And that's the reason why I wanted everybody to know. It's not like you're just coming in here and using it 3 times a year or whatever. Y'all are involved in the community. Y'all have helped out with the schools, y'all have helped out with a lot of things, and I'm aware of that. I get it beat in my head every day. But anyway, my thing is, I don't know what the pleasure of the board is gonna be, but I can tell you, my job sitting up here is if there's a problem somewhere, I'm supposed to try to help people, not hurt them. Now, what was good for 2005, 2007 may not be good now. And that's what I'm going from. And you have to revisit it. And how many units do we have in this resort condo zoning?
37.
We have
37.
one.
Oh,
We have one, and that's the Sands North. My thing is, I had a problem with the section number 4. I felt like it needed to be stricken out because y'all are underneath there, the resort condo unit. I had a problem with the paragraph 5, the same reason. And I had a big problem with the penalties. Because if these are reports that dictated by the state, then I don't feel like it's prudent for us to double charge or whatever you want to call it, and make it like that. So I don't think the number 8 needs to be really there. I think it's good on that. But I'm gonna make a motion on this, and hopefully I'll get a second, and we'll get some resolution on this, because we've been flying a long time like this, and like I said, this board has promised, and we're gonna try to help. And I'm gonna make a motion.
Commissioner, we've got to have 2 public hearings before the board can take action. So if you're making a motion to make some adoption of this, we can't do that at this time.
I think they understand that.
Okay.
Do you all understand that if there's some changes in here and this board votes for it, then it's gonna have to be 2 more meetings? Am I right? This is why, I was hoping,
We gotta have another meeting.
Well,
before
what I
we
was
do
going to
anything.
Oh,
suggest
yeah.
is if the board wants to give me some, not take a vote on anything, if the board members want to give
Well,
me
that's what
some
I'm fixing to do.
directions on
That's
what
what I'm
you're
fixing to do.
thinking, then we can do that.
that's what I'm fixing to do. And this is not no motion to approve or deny or anything else. This is just to straighten out some things because apparently everybody has not talked to everybody. And I want to do it. Now, I leave it all like that, but I am going to go underneath the notes of the C2 Commercial Business District. I'm going to make a motion that we ask the attorney to strike number 4, the proposed new paragraph 4, and to strike the paragraph 5, and to strike the penalty. And that's my motion.
Okay. Commissioners, what I would suggest that might be, treat this kind of like our executive sessions where y'all talk to me and you tell me what you're thinking, but you can't take any action. So I would not recommend like making a motion in a second and
Okay.
taking action because we really need.
Well, you got to know if everybody's for it.
But that's the thing, but you can give me an idea of what it is y'all are all thinking, and then when we get the second hearing, I can present something back to you, and then y'all can make a.
Mr. Shooter, we got to give you your marching orders. You always tell us that we got to give you marching orders.
I agree with that, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that, this is the first time since I've been the county attorney in 17 years that we have actually amended our zoning code and held these 2 public hearings that
Well-
are required. I'm just trying to be cautious and make sure we don't create any procedural problems.
Well, I could see that, but like I said, if we didn't have this checks and balances at the state level, I would be worried about it and I'd say, go ahead and do this.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
we've got the state.
Yes,
And the state, I mean, they're gonna be a resort condo transient thing. They're gonna be required to do certain things. And if we ever wanna give a checkup on them, all we gotta do is call up that Department of Revenue and say, hey, send us a copy of the reports. We need a copy or whatever. And hopefully that they'll feel encumbered to just bring us a copy of it and see, but to make sure that they do it, mm-mm. But anyway, I would like to see, since this is my area that, and I was one woman. But anyway, and to direct, Attorney Schuler to look at those things that I have, asked him to do. Now, if any of y'all have a problem with it, you can speak it up.
I've already interjected my objections to removing all that. I'll leave it to the rest of the board.
Go ahead.
Mr. Commissioner. I would like to say before I start talking that I am not against changing to give you guys relief. I want to make sure you're aware of that and understand that. Because in the public discourse of free thinking and ideas, we might not always agree with one another. I know looking at different things when I was running for election and ordinances in this county, we have a ton of ordinances that either are not being enforced or have no enforcement. So to take the penalty away takes away any enforcement. And if that's the case, that's not an ordinance I'm voting for, because we have enough that aren't enforceable now without creating more that have no enforcement. And I will say, just in general knowledge, and again, not against you guys having relief, I know that every time I've ever signed my name on a line, I knew what I was signing. I knew whether it was an amortized loan or a daily simple interest loan. I knew what I was getting into. Now, going forward from that, our idea, and I think the whole reason this is coming up, is to try to provide relief. We're past that point already. So really, discussions on that are kind of mute. But I just wanted to give my thoughts, that's what I'm here for, about ordinances and ordinances that have no enforcement applicable to them.
Mr. Lutton?
Yeah. Yeah, to look at it, I'm looking at this thing now. This happened back, I was in. And this the only one of these. They had started, they were trying to build these things back then, and that's the only one went through. It was 2 or 3 of them supposed to have been built. But they didn't, for some reason, they didn't get built. And that was the only one. And really, you got to, we can't, you're not gonna deal with nothing like that, though, you're dealing with different laws back then, and now the laws have changed for the future and stuff like that. But this stuff, they not asking for too much. I mean, some of this, if the state doing it, we not gonna sit up there and, I don't know what we're against it, but we don't have nobody to even go around and check it. We don't have no code enforcement. So they sending the stuff to us. What y'all want them to send this to the state and us too? That's not right. I mean, that wouldn't, the rest of the people don't have to do that. All the other people have to do that?
Well, Commissioner Lockley, there are no other people like this. And the reason that I am suggesting that you consider having some type of report is so that you can confirm that they're actually renting out these units, getting a tax report from the Department of Revenue. As I've sat here thinking about it, of course, as I said earlier, I've never seen one, but I don't know if that report, is it saying how many times a year they rent it, or is it just they number each quarter? I know when I file my quarterly returns at my offices that, you know, it basically goes a number, gives the name of the employee and just gives the amount of taxes that we, you know, their wages and then the tax that we owe back to the government. I don't know what these Department of Revenue reports have, but there is a provision that your attorneys are suggesting that you accept on our interpretation of the statute, that these unit owners, giving them the relief that they want with conditions. I mean, I have written this in conjunction with Mr. Theriak in such a fashion that I do not believe that anyone else can qualify for this exemption. So you're not talking about treating them differently than anyone else. Because you're doing something for them, I mean, you are making them different than anybody else in the county. But you've already indicated that's the direction the board's going. So that's the reason I've drafted this ordinance in this fashion. The reporting requirements are to ensure that they actually are renting out the units at least 3 times a year, not exceeding 30 days per rental. And then the penalty provision was just if there's a reporting requirement, you know, there seems to have the need for some type of a penalty for not filing the report. But whether, and this is more of a placeholder provision so that the board would have an ability to either accept this or retract it back. But when I draft these ordinances and put them out there, if there's not a penalty provision in there, and then the board wants one, then I haven't put you in a procedural position where you can impose the penalty if that's your choice. I mean, if you want to take the penalty out, then you end up, I mean, if you have any reporting requirement, then the penalty ends up defaulting back to a misdemeanor criminal violation, which is, as I said, what I was trying to avoid. But Commissioner Lockley, does that sufficiently answer the question?
Yeah, but you said they got to rent it out 3 times. Who gonna check? Yeah, if I own these things, I can tell you any day. I rented it out 3 times. I rented it out 3 times, and what they got to have who they rented it to and all that.
No, sir, it's just the amount of days that they occupy the unit themselves as owners, and then the number of times that the rental information. But again, that is at the discretion of the board. I mean, you do have the authority, if you choose to accept their interpretation of the statute, which means it's held for renting, but not actually rented.
It just ain't on. It could be there in words, but that don't mean it's gonna be followed. I mean, it don't make no sense to me.